In any life, we have highs and lows, light and dark, wins and losses. What happens when we encounter that moment in time when what happens next could change everything? Join us as we step into another person's inspirational moment and see how we can connect their experience to ours. This is Greg Stevens, and you're listening to A Shot of Inspiration. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of A Shot of Inspiration. I've got a really great guest that I recently met, and he has a company where he goes out and he works with people who are overthinkers and helps them make decisions and actually take action in their lives. And I met Brad. His name is Brad Finkeldei. Am I saying that right, Brad?
Finkeldei.
Finkeldei. Okay. Finkeldei. I've been calling you Brad. I didn't know. So, Brad Finkeldei. And I met Brad through Jamie Bill, who is my business partner. And she's known Brad for a while. And she said, you got to have this guy on. And I looked him up on the internet and saw some of his work. He's doing amazing things, folks. And I'm excited to have him on. So, Brad, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate Jamie making the introduction. And anytime I can share my story, gets a little message out just to remind someone to think differently in their life. Yeah. And the name of the podcast, awesome, A Shot of Inspiration.
Thanks for being here. I really do appreciate it. I want you to tell the listeners a little about what you do and why you do it. What brought you into that, and what started all of this, and why you're doing it.
Yeah. So basically, I'm a coach, but what goes into that for me is I found inspiration through helping others. And so I help people just like me, the overthinkers of the world, start acting and stop thinking, and so they can get their greatest work into the world. And that comes around in a couple different variants, but basically I help them understand how much they're overthinking things and really put together some sort of plan for their life and where they want to take things so they can get out of their own way. Because this is an amazing tool up here, and it's an amazing tool in both directions. Like, it can pull you down and keep you weighted and figure the whole universe out, and then you roll into your grave. And then you're like, well, I missed the whole point of life.
I agree so much. And we all do it. It's interesting because I think we all have blind spots. And so what I'm hearing is you help people in those blind spots where their brain shuts them down rather than pulls them forward.
Yeah. And it's not, for me, it's not even like that it shut me down. It's just thinking too much, thinking of all the scenarios, preparing for every little last thing that could possibly go wrong. That even in this setup, like, I'm staying at my brother's house right now for the holidays, and I actually live out in Florida, and I live my RV full time. And so when I was thinking about this, people who are, this is going to be a video, they won't know that I'm surrounded by little dolls. And these are my nieces. This is like their little playroom / extra bedroom. And so there's dolls everywhere.
That's great.
And there's a little Barbie doll, I think VW Bug right over there.
That's awesome. That's the one you like to play with, right?
Yeah. I try to get it in every once in a while, but I think I'm a little too big for it. So,
so go ahead.
No. So yeah, I was just saying, over preparing for everything. And inside of that, what my mind wants to do is it wants to put all the dials in a row. So in case someone sees that there's a row of dials over there, they won't think I'm weird or bad. It's not even to put the whole conflict. Why is this grown man in a room of dolls? But they can't even see it. Like, the video here doesn't even give them that. I could be naked from below this and people could still get the same message and they would never know. Now, don't ask me to stand up, but it's okay.
That's awesome.
But that's what our minds do. They want us to look good for others when others aren't even caring about how good we look. And we spend so much of our time, I've spent so much of my time trying to be prepared for a situation which no one really gives a crap about. Is this one hair out of place? They're going to think so wrong of me and so bad. Oh my God, I got a gray hair, or I got a mole, or what? It could be anything.
Right.
They think is wrong or bad. And in the meantime, their life's going by and they're not doing the things that they really want. And they're just preparing to be prepared. And what I like to help people do is understand what's going on up here so that they can become aware of that mechanism, that voice that's constantly and then they can become present to it and then decide and distinguish, hey, I don't need to listen to that voice.
Yeah.
No one's going to judge you based upon things they can't see in the first place.
Yeah.
But our mind's just all day long. And what am I going to do? What are they going to think about me? I need to make sure to have this and think that. And then, the day's over. I didn't have fun. I didn't do anything I wanted.
And how do you distinguish that voice from your core of who you are? How do you do that?
I think the first step for me is starting to slow down. Meditation's been a huge thing for me to be able to see it. Also, a very important point is actually setting a intention that you're going to become aware of it so that you can distinguish it. The process of anything, I think, in life is like, first steps, you might actually be in it. And then the next step is becoming aware of it. And then you can start to work on whatever that thing is and work through the process. And once you have that tool, then you're able to start to make those distinguishments, if that's a word, easier and much faster. And it's a process. It's a gradual process of getting better and better at becoming aware of it.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've heard. I'm re-listening to a book I've read many times called Awareness. Have you ever heard of that with Anthony
No, I
DeMille?
haven't heard that one.
And just before I came on today, was talking about if you're unaware of something, you're a slave to it. The moment you become aware of it, you have freedom from it. Doesn't mean it's not there, but you have that freedom from it.
Yeah.
Rather than it running you. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a perfect segue, Greg, right into my story.
Good. Yeah. How did you get to work doing this work?
Yeah, so I wasn't aware of who I was or who I was being. But what I was aware of was I was in a job. It was a good job. I had built my career towards this position in IT, and I was living in Austin, Texas, South Austin, Manchaca, William Cannon to be exact. But I was driving north.
That's good.
Bought the house south. The job I was at didn't work out. Anyways, and then I got the new job up, and I was like, man, nah, I got a house south and I got to drive through traffic in Austin. Anyways, all that to be aside, I wasn't happy in my position. And I had the big house, I had the BMW, I had all the stuff that you're supposed to in order to quote unquote be happy, right? And I had heard about this thing called life coaching, never done anything like that before. I reached out to someone, we met up for coffee. It was just an initial conversation. And at the end of this conversation, she helped me become aware. And it was like the very first crack into it. And what she said to me altered the trajectory of my life. She said, you're not very confident and you're using your big paycheck to impress people. And that was my first, like, what? Like, my ego was like, she knows about the curtain. She knows about it.
Who showed her that?
We don't like her. So anyways, what ended up happening was that was a catalyst moment for me to start thinking differently about my life. And I started thinking, man, I really don't want to be in this big house. It's not working. And so I had been working on my photography on my creative side for a long time. And I was like, I think this is really where I want to take myself. And so I set a goal, I set an intention of actually leaving that job in 3 months. And this is something that once you set an intention and you're open to that happening, it can happen a lot faster. So I set that intention. Within about a few weeks, I'm walking my dog and I get this odd thought of maybe if I get fired, that would speed things up, because I was starting to get impatient. Once you know you're going somewhere, I was wanting to get there, and I'm like, well, I don't want to wait 3 months, but it's a good time. Just get my stuff together. And this thought came in. I was like, well, maybe if I get fired, that would speed it up. I walked into work that morning and I got laid off. And I was like I was literally like sitting beside myself in fear and like anxiety of like excitement. And so I was like, this is weird. And I could tell that my boss was uneasy doing it. He didn't like to do a layoff. And he's like, this isn't working. Like, this whole department's not going to be in existence. The other department's making much more profit. And so we're just going to downsize here. And I walked outside of there scared and excited. And I called my brother and he was like, dude, you can collect unemployment. They fired you. I'm like, he goes, if you would have left, you get nothing. I'm like, oh. bonus. I was like, I'd never been let go from a job before. I didn't know how to walk any of that. Now I had some money saved. And so I wasn't, but I was ready to start this journey.
Right.
And I started working more and more in my photography. I followed a passion project at the time of doing some yoga photography, and I did some really cool backlighting and I met this couple, and I just did something for me because I really wanted to express that part. Well, inside of meeting them, they really love what I did for them. And they're like, we have or she had a yoga forest, a yoga retreat center in Guatemala. And I'm just getting it built up. Like things are going really well. And we need to redo the website and get some photography. We'd love it if you could come down and we could work out a deal and you could stay here. So I got my first international photography gig by following some inspiration that was actually something that brought joy out of me. And I went down there and I did this gig and it was wonderful. And I got to experience Guatemala for 2 weeks and really learned a whole lot of new things. I took a permaculture course while I was down there and I did my photography and stuff like that. And I'll always remember this moment. So drones were just becoming big back then. And I had bought a drone. I was going to get some cool images. The yoga forest was in a valley and you could take the drone out in the middle and get some cool images. I did. And I did it just like what a good photographer does in the morning light, because that's when the best light is. I didn't think that my loud drone would wake up every dog in the valley thinking that there's like some sort of alien force of bees in the neighborhood.
That's awesome.
So I got my pictures and took my drone down right away. But anyways, I went on that trip. It was wonderful. I came back, built their website and did a good job for them. And it was just a cool experience. But when I came back to Austin, Texas, it was Christmas time. So I headed back to St. Louis and I visited my mom, my family here. And about 20 years before that, my dad had passed away. And my mom's house had just started to fall apart. No one was really taking care of, like me and my brothers helped out. And we did what we could and we took care of her to the best of our ability. But something inside with me was like, I think my mom deserves better. I think this house could really use some rehabbing. And that coupled with feeling a little bit lonely and not feeling like Austin's my place, I was like, you know what? I'm going to move back in with my mom and I'm going to rehab her house and redo the basement for her. It just really had fallen apart. I just felt a thing of regret. If I don't do this, I'm going to feel regretful later. And I moved back in with her. I started rehabbing the basement and I got it finished in several months. And it was a wonderful, horrible, great experience of learning about leadership and YouTubing everything that I had to learn to rehab this basement, and got my brothers involved. And my mom got a really nice 70th birthday present. She got to do snow carpet angels at the end. And it was just a special gift. And she got to spend the remainder of her life in a home that she felt more proud of. And she could invite people over. And it was wonderful. But it was during that time that I discovered coaching as a business, as like a career path. And I'd never thought about that. It just, whatever. The one person who made a big difference for me, which I didn't acknowledge at the time, was a woman, right? And so I went out and got certified as a coach. And then I wrote a book. And I started walking the analytical path my brain had made up. You got to do this, and you got to do this, and you got to do this, and you got to do this. And I went on this speaking trip down to Ecuador. And I went with this big group of people, and they're all speakers and coaches and trying to make a difference in the world and bring out the best in people. And one of the guys that was with us was a shaman. And he carried around this giant rubber chicken. And then he handed out these little bitty baby rubber chickens to people. I don't know if you heard.
That's awesome. Yeah, folks, he's showing me, if you're just listening, he's got these itty bitty rubber chickens. They're awesome though.
Yeah, they're like 1.5 inches or maybe an inch.
That's awesome.
And he gave these out to kids and adults and anybody, and just left them with a message of, don't let fear run your life. Don't be a chicken. Whatever it is you care about, step into it, follow that faith that's there of, hey, I'm going to go do something. I don't know how I'm going to do it or what's going to show up, but I know the best version of myself shows up when I do it. And he gave me one, and I went about my trip and had a wonderful trip. And the next year, about a year later, his friends and family were over in Egypt, and they were just caravanning in the desert and visiting and whatnot. The Egyptian government didn't communicate to the military that they had some just travelers, just some tourists in the area. And the Egyptian military mistook their caravan for terrorists because they happened to be on a similar path. And they gunned them down by helicopter and killed the majority of them. And so it was a really tragic accident. It made international headlines because there's some Mexican nationals in their party that were killed, and Mexico was really upset, obviously. But after that moment, shortly thereafter, I felt inspired by God to take on that message. I was like, this guy was just handing out these little chickens, and he was reminding people not to let fear stop them. And I was like, you know what? It sounds like a good combination of me. It sounds a lot like me. Like, I like to inspire. I like to bring laughter and lightness into the world. So why not? So I ordered my first round of chickens. And inside of that, I ordered them from Amazon. And at this point in time, I had moved to Portland. Short side story. I thought I was going to fix all my problems by going there, but I took the problems with me, this guy. So if you're moving around and you're listening to this and you still have the same problems, it's because the problems are with you.
Exactly. They're not out there. They're inside you. Yeah.
Yeah. And so anyways, I had ordered these, and the day that they showed up, I was walking my dog, and I happened to see a guy walk past me on my path back to the house. And I didn't think anything of it, but this guy was pushing a bicycle, and he had some boxes under his arms and on the handlebar. And I was like, that's kind of weird. But anyways, I went about my business and walked back to the house. It was just about a half a block away or something. And then when I get back to the house, what I notice is I got my alert that my Amazon package was just dropped off. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I was a little excited. And then I check on the porch. It's not there. I double check inside. It's not there. And then it just struck me, wait a minute. The guy that I just passed was not the UPS guy. And my package is missing. And it was within minutes of just that drop off. And it was like, boom.
Right.
And then it hit me on the inside of, man, I gotta go chase this. Like, I gotta go confront this guy. Always avoided confrontation, you know?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that I've come to learn is that when you ask for help from something, when you ask for help from God, universe, whatever you want to call it, you're not going to get a book of how to do it. You might, but your real understanding and your real teaching of what you're looking for is going to happen in the form of an experience. I can't really give you firsthand experience about what it's like to be a mom. Last time I checked, I don't have any.
It's not going to happen.
and I don't have any children. So who am I really to tell, what a mom to do? A mom's going to have her own experience of it takes everything I have in my soul not to murder my children on a bad day.
On a bad day, absolutely.
So anyways, the experience was put in front of me of like being courageous and really stepping into my own confidence. So I stood there for a moment and I was like, I can either go upstairs and be a chicken. Don't want to do that. Or I can go chase this guy down. Definitely don't want to do that. And it was just like, oh, I have to go do this. This is too in my face of symbolism.
And can't ignore it. Yeah.
And so I took a step off the front porch, chase this guy down. My heart's a bumping and beating. And I don't know what's going to happen. I might get murdered, whatever. And I confronted the guy and I said, hey, you got my package? And he was like, no, I don't. And I'm like, my name's Brad Finkeldei, and that's the name on the package.
There's the evidence.
And I got the package from him. I opened it up. And when I opened it up, I was instantly dumbfounded because I ordered 100 of these things for $31 and I got one. And I'm like, I just got ripped off from the Amazon seller and this guy stole my package. It was like a horrible double whammy. So in my mind, I was like, I'll deal with that later. I looked at this guy and I held up this little chicken in front of his face. And I go, you just stole a little tiny rubber chicken, like 1 inch. What are you going to do with that? And so he looked at me and he opened up and he started to share his life. And he said that he was homeless. He was strung out on drugs. His mom was homeless and strung out on drugs. His girlfriend was homeless and on drugs. And that they had just, this is what they had gotten to just to get by.
Yeah.
And so I felt a reality there and I felt an authenticity there from him. Like, hey, I stole your package because I don't know where I'm going to eat next. That type of reality.
Right.
So I felt firm And I'd been going through a leadership course, and I'm like, okay, this isn't about me. Like, how can I be of service to someone else in need? So I gave him a few bucks that I had on me, and we talked for a few more minutes. And it was the day that I discovered when you step out and you be courageous for yourself or for another, you're going to make a difference for both.
Yeah.
And so I've been on a mission to give away 10,000 of these, and I've given away about 1,500 so far over the years. And I just have conversations where I share my story and or variants of my story, and then I leave people with a little reminder and let them keep that or put that someplace in their life to remind them of, maybe today's I go have that conversation with my mom, maybe not.
Yeah.
Or maybe today's the day I quit my job, or maybe today's the day that I ask out that guy or whatever it is for you, to start and not let fear just be the grabber and holder down of your life, so you can start to be self-expressed and really live the life that you truly desire, whatever it is for you. And it's been quite a process for me to let go of a lot of my fears. I still got stuff going on, and just to be a light, I guess a funny light. Be a funny light for other people. I got to write that down. That might be a tagline somewhere.
That's great. And I love that because, Brad, I can't imagine when you confront someone like that, that there would be an opening for that kind of a conversation. You just don't think in that realm that that would ever be possible when you're talking about it. That just made a 90-degree turn for me. Yeah. And one of the things I find, I love that it's getting out and doing something, putting action into what goes on in your head, because the right thing tends to show up. Do that.
Yeah. If we allow ourselves to see it and
See.
experience it. Sometimes
Yeah, you're exactly. Yeah, you're too close to it. Yeah, you can't read the label from inside the bottles. There's just no way to do that. And that's why we all need coaches and mentors and people to help us wake up to those awarenesses you were talking about. But I love that you got out and you did something. Even in the space you were going, you went out to Portland, you thought it was going to look one way. It didn't look the way you wanted, but it led you to the work you needed to do on yourself to actually take you to the next place you needed to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a beautiful story. I know that that's what you're doing while you're doing it now. What are some of the results or insights you've helped people have? Tell us a couple of stories about people you've been able to help and wake up, and some of the results that people who've worked with you have received.
Yeah, I will share one of my favorite clients. I've been working with him for a while. And he was a big time overthinker, and still is in some cases. Like, overthinking is just something that you learn to manage and you learn to understand and become aware of, so you're not run by it anymore. And one of my clients, he was stuck in, it wasn't stuck in his career. He just didn't know where he really wanted to go. And what we've been able to do together is I've helped him identify, one, that he's been overthinking things, right? And one of the first things that we did was help him identify what he really wanted for himself. And the conversation that kept coming up was wanting to step into leadership more and more. But that little overthinking voice was always trying to be perfect. So I helped him really create a mission statement for his life about who he wanted to be. And then he puts that in the forefront of his day and his weeks. Okay, this week I'm going to be, trying to remember his exact statement, but basically a leader that supports and encourages and empowers the people around him to be successful. And he's gone from his current position to getting, I think, 1 or 2 raises and promotions in the time that we've worked together. But more importantly, to seeing himself as a leader inside of that organization.
Yeah.
And now more of his conversations are about, how am I going to get my team prepared to do this? How am I going to get my team to be more successful? Not out of a place of lack, but my job now is to support others and help make them successful. Because one of the human conditions, we think about ourselves more than we think about others. But when we can manage that conversation and start to, okay, it's not about me all the time. I've got food, shelter. I'm not going to die right now. Then I can start to serve and help others.
Yeah.
And one of the hardest things, I think, for people to get out of, because or get through because it's like a trap.
Yeah.
How do I help others when I have to help myself first? And then you can get stuck in that overthinking cycle. And it's
Yeah.
been wonderful to see him transform. One of my, like, I think as a coach, a lot of coaches would probably agree with this, is it's when your client comes back to you and they share, it's not about the result, but it's about the transformation. And then they share a result that's a part of that.
Right.
They're empowered now. They feel good about what they're up to. They know where they want to go, and they're taking the action to get there. And it just feels amazing when that happens.
It does. And it's interesting because you said he had a real struggle at the beginning where he really wanted to go. I find that when I coach someone, people come and they think they won't know what they want. When you really get down to asking the question, most of them don't. And the other thing I find with that is that many times, if I have to choose where I want to go, they have that FOMO, fear of missing out on all the other things in life. But all those other things come when you choose that direction. I have a client I'm coaching right now. He's holding on to the past. And I said, you can't grab all those things if you hold on to that thing that's holding you down. You got to let go. And that's the biggest thing. Surrender and pick a lane. Where do you want to go? Yeah.
It's letting go is probably the hardest / easiest thing.
It is, because we have such an attachment, and that's one of the things we get to see what you're really attached to in life. Most people are really attached to that pain. They don't know that they are, but they're attached because they define themselves with it. So
yeah, another client of mine that I worked with and still work with her, she really had a lot of self-sabotage. Now, the initial conversations were about, where do I want to take myself? Where do I want to go with my life and my career and like all those things? And when we really got to working, there's just a lot of self-sabotage and negative thoughts about herself. And she was an overachiever and always trying to be on. And she couldn't sit next to the couch and enjoy time with her husband without feeling guilty.
wow.
And so she really had to work on just sitting. Like literally, the work you're going to do right now is to sit on your butt and do nothing. But I feel guilty. I feel guilty. No, your husband just wants to enjoy time with you. And so while she just landed one of her dream jobs, and that's amazing. And that took her some time to get. The first phase that we worked through, when we finished that phase, it wasn't about the career aspect. She said, Brad, you've done more for my marriage than our therapist has done. And we've been seeing him for 10 years. And it was just because of the way she was talking to herself, and that it affected every aspect of her life. And that was a really huge compliment. And I didn't do much except for listen and help her see what her mind was doing, and that it wasn't her fault. A lot of people believe that the way they're thinking is their fault. Like that the craziness is, oh, something's wrong with me. You're the one who designed the system. You didn't design the system.
Yeah.
You just plopped into this body and this experience, and that mind is designed to do what it's designed to do. Right. Now you can shift it, right? And you can learn to be aware of it. But people, and myself included, have these thoughts where it's like, what's wrong with me? No, you didn't do it. You didn't create that. Like maybe a little kid did, but you shouldn't, I think, tell little kids they're idiots and they're dumb for not getting things right the first time. So really understanding that brings and gives people power back to their life. Oh, cool. Well, how do I move from there? Okay, awesome. Let's start to work.
Yeah, exactly. And that's key is the wake up and then the work to apply what you've learned. That's really amazing.
It could be quite the process to learn about yourself in that manner. There's impacts to it, because there's some things that you've realized that you've either done or that have happened can leave you with some thoughts and feelings of guilt or shame or something like that. So it's a whole unfolding process.
Yeah, it is. So as we finish up, I want to ask you one more question. What insight or gold nugget that would be inspiring that you would like to leave the audience with? One gold nugget that you've learned through your life or experienced that you would like to leave that really has an insight inspiration for people?
I'll share this one. This is the first thing that came up, and I just came back from my workout this morning, and this guy was sharing a story about patience, right? And it struck me that I just had a really moving experience last week. I lost my mom about 4 years ago. She passed away. And when she passed away, I didn't realize how much of an impact she had on my life. And that ever since I had been a little kid, I had done a lot of things to impress my mom or just to get the love and attention. But that continued from a child all the way up until adulthood. It's just something that was set as a kid. I'm going to take care of my mom. I'm going to make a bunch of money. She'll never have to worry about finances again. What happened inside of that was that she was a guiding light for me and a guiding force to, I don't want to, impress isn't the right way. When a little kid says, Mom, or look at me, look what I can do. That was still within me. And I think it still is within a lot of people. But as we get older, it doesn't get to be expressed. And I don't see very many 45-year-olds going, Mom, look at me, look at me. Maybe we should. A lot of times moms will probably be like, you're a grown man, you need to get I'm not going to look at you. It's 8 o'clock, put your pants on, go get it, whatever. Anyway, I became aware of that, of man, like I've been driving so far and then she was gone. Now what? And so I had I would say a case of depression, mild depression, that has lasted for the last few years. And I didn't really know I was in that so much. Maybe inherently I did, but I battled with that. And I got help. I've got a lot of mentors and coaches and seeked a therapist and stuff like that. And I think the core message I want to leave people with is this last week, I had this epiphany, I don't want to say epiphany, just a new realization that I've been working and asking for help to just be happier ever since that had happened. And I've been watching this yoga video. I'm doing yoga in the morning. And one of the questions is, what are you looking forward to today? And I didn't notice it until a few weeks ago that most times I didn't have it. Even though like I've been giving away these chickens, there's still this case of something's not right. And the whole time I've been working on this thread. Okay, I want to be happier when I'm working. That's been my intention. And it's taken time. Last week, the same video, she asked the same question again. She does it every time. She's very consistent.
That's good.
And I answered it for the first time. And I said, I think I want to enjoy life. And it was like, oh my God. Like it was for I'm looking forward to material things or this or that, whatnot. It was just like, I just wanted to get up and enjoy life. And it was like my heart started to open again. And so the message I want to leave people with is really, if you're going through a tough time, you've got to give yourself patience and time, because if your heart has been closed, it can take some time to unfold and untangle some of the rat's nest of stuff in there. But if you continue the work of working on yourself, it can really make a huge difference. And just keep at it. Keep trying to open up and let go of stuff. And one day you'll find an opening, and hopefully it'll cause a huge smile. And after that moment, like my life started to shift in a huge new way of just, it's going to be happy today. Even if there's nothing to do or nowhere to go or no big experience, just how can I've just been happier.
I love that, because that's a message for me today. It's been a rough couple of weeks for me. And when you just said that, I need to look out and say, you know what? Let's enjoy life today. Let's enjoy the day. That's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Real quick before we finish up, if for those who are listening, because we're going to have your information on social media, how can people get a hold of you?
They can call me directly at 555. No, I've got my website, and it's sparksofcourage.com, and that's Sparks with a Z. So SPARKZ of courage.com. And there's a contact form on there. They can reach me as well. I've also got a chicken checklist they can download if they want to go through a little exercise of what am I missing out on life and what am I really chickening out on. It's a good reflection exercise.
That's great.
So people can reach out to me on there or Instagram on Sparks of Courage, and then my name too.
And say that and spell your name again for them.
Yeah, BRADNKELDEI.
Is it Finkeldei?
Finkeldei. Yeah, and actually of God. I had
What does it mean?
It means the spark of God.
Spark of God. I love that.
Yeah, I was coaching someone. They're like, "Do you mind? I like genealogy. Can I research your name?" I'm like, "Sure." And they came back like a week or two later. "This is what your name means." I'm like, "Really? Cool."
Wow, that would be a great one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brad, thanks for being on the show. And everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of A Shot of Inspiration. I'm Greg Stevens. I'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of A Shot of Inspiration. If you like this or any of our other episodes, make sure you rate it and share it with a friend. This is Greg Stevens, and we look forward to being with you next time. Until then, be bold, be courageous, and respectfully speak your truth.